what the story Rabbi Kaplan told you?
I was just video chatting him.
Yeah, and what did he tell you? Do you want to say the story to everybody online as well?
Well, he was talking about basically.
Yeah, no, if you're going to stop, you're going to have to move the camera.
No. Overlap. It's pretty long.
Move this closer.
All right.
You can
Okay,
sit
we are about to begin. We have a lot of very interesting information here today, specifically about the creation of the world. When exactly was the world created? Okay, when was the world created? What day of the year was the world created? You say the world was created in the 25th of Elul. What do you say? Elul? What do you say? When was the world created? Huh? The answer is machloikos. It is actually a dispute when the world was created. There's a dispute when the world was created, and we're about to learn that in our Gemara today. We're going to learn about the dispute of when the world was created. A lot of people say, oh yeah, according to Judaism, Rosh Hashanah is when the world was created. Wrong. There's a machloikis, there's a dispute. Oh, now we even have a microphone. Like everything in Judaism, not everything is always agreed upon, and there's always rabbis that argue. They actually argue as to when the world was created, what day of the year, when was the world created. All right? And that's what we're going to learn today in the Talmud, in the Gemara. And thanks for joining. If you are new, you have to remember a few important things. Number one, if you are on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the bell immediately so that you can be notified every time we go live. That's number one. Number two is this is not just a lecture, a one-way lecture. This is an interactive workshop ritual, as we call it, etc., which means that you can actually ask questions on this stream. If you're joining us live, you could actually put a question or comment in the comment section of whatever platform you're on, and we will get it. And we have our moderator over here, David, is going to tell us what the questions are, and we will attempt to answer them as best as possible. Once again, the basic rule over here is as follows. If we're during the Talmud part of the class, you must be asking a question that's relevant to understanding that particular Talmud. If you're not sure about a particular detail that we mentioned, you have something that you want to know around the topic, we will deal with it. If you have a different question that's not on topic, at the end of the class, we will have a question and answer session. At that point, you are welcome and encouraged. And we're very happy for you to share your, how should I call it? Your questions, any questions you have, right? Meir is already thinking of a whole list of questions he's going to ask me at the end of the class. He has like a whole bunch of things he wants to ask. He's super curious about everything in Judaism and specifically about why I have such interesting looking glasses. Okay?
Especially Gemara and Tanakh.
Gemara and Tanakh. There you go. So let's begin. We say that the Jubilee year is similar to every Rosh Hashanah with the blowing of the shofar and with the blessings that are made on said shofar. Okay? Now, what that means is that when there was a Jubilee year, the rabbis would institute a Jubilee year. They used to say all the blessings, and they used to blow the shofar exactly the same as Rosh Hashanah. So essentially, on that Jubilee year, you would come Rosh Hashanah, and you would have the whole Rosh Hashanah ritual with all the blessings and all the shofar soundings, and then 10 days later on Yom Kippur, you would hear the exact same thing. You would have the exact same blowing of the shofar, etc. Okay? That is what the Mishnah says. That's a quote from the Mishnah, and now the Talmud, the Gemara, is going to analyze said Mishnah. All right? You think you can handle this? Huh? You're ready to handle some serious Talmudic interaction. Okay? Omar Shmuel, says Shmuel bar Yitzchak, the son of Yitzchak. Keman matzlinon ho'idna. According to who do we today pray as follows? On Rosh Hashanah we say, Zeh hayoim tchilas ma'asecha zikaron liyoim rishon. This is the beginning of your work, the remembrance of the first day. In other words, this is a part of the prayer that the Jewish people will say, Bezrat Hashem, exactly 1 week from Thursday. 1 week from Thursday, if you're watching this live. If not, you can look at whenever this was uploaded live, and you could know that the next Thursday is the Jewish Rosh Hashanah. As many people call it, the New Year, the Jewish New Year. Okay? It's actually Rosh Hashanah technically means the head of the year, which means the beginning of the year. However, we're going to have a bit of a discussion as to why that is called that, etc. Now, today, the Jewish people pray. We say, Zeh hayoyim tchilas ma'asecha. This is the day when you begin your work, which is referring to God. God began his work on Rosh Hashanah. That's what we say in the prayer of Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara starts out with a question: according to who do we say this particular prayer? Okay, based on whose opinion? Keman, according to who? Rabbi Eliezer. This is according to Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. And now we're going to explain what that opinion is. The Omar, that he says, B'tishrei nibra olam, he says, in Tishrei, the world was created. Which means there is an opinion that the world was actually created in Nisan. We're not, in this particular Talmud, in this particular Gemara, we are not going into those details. We are not explaining that argument between Tishrei and Nisan. We're just mentioning to you that there is an argument whether Rosh Hashanah was on Tishrei or on Nisan, and we kind of accept the opinion that Rosh Hashanah is in fact the day that God created the world. Okay, so when did God create the world, Meir? So the choice between the argument is Tishrei or Nisan, which means the same month as Pesach. Tishrei or Nisan. Okay? So when did God create the world? What was the first day of creation, David? What was the first day of creation? 25th of Elul. So why are we saying that the world was created on Rosh Hashanah if you just told me a different date? Do you know better than the rabbis? Are you smarter than the rabbis? Oh, so we have David. David is a tremendously brilliant Talmudic scholar, and he's learned a lot of information that we did not learn over here. And since you learned so much information that we didn't yet discuss in this Gemara, he knows that actually the first day of the creation was 5 days before Rosh Hashanah. If that's the case, why do we say that this is the beginning of your work on Rosh Hashanah if really the beginning of your work was 5 days earlier? Huh? What do you say? Oh, because really the first day of creation and the second day of creation and the third day of creation and the fourth day of creation and the fifth day of creation, all those 5 days, God's work really did not begin. God was preparing his work, his craft, which really began on the sixth day of creation. Why? Because that's when humanity was created. Okay? So up until humanity was created, we are saying God's work, God's craft didn't really begin. Right? Because when does God's craft really begin? When we're created, human beings. Right? As a matter of fact, you have many environmentalists that very often, unfortunately, decide to preference the planet over human lives. Yes, it's 100% true. You could ask certain environmentalists, and they will literally tell you that they would prefer saving the planet over saving people's lives. And that is extremely twisted and demonic. Okay? It is evil. Okay? It's super messed up because one life in this world is actually worth more than the entire planet. Because one human life, which is the dwelling of infinity, infinity dwells within each human life, and therefore one human life is worth more than the entire planet. Yeah. Now, the only reason why perhaps the planet needs to be preferenced is because obviously without a planet you won't have human life. So the only value of the planet is the fact that it is the harborer, if that's a correct word, of human life. And everything else is worthless. The planet is worthless without human life. Human life is what makes the planet valuable. And if you don't like what I have to say, I want you to go look with a telescope at the rest of the planets that don't have human life and tell me how much value do they have. They're a bunch of pieces of something, right? They have zero value. Okay? Therefore, you have to remember. They're just luminary. Again, they have their purpose. Obviously, God created them for a reason, right? But the fact is that they're valueless relative to human life. Human life is God's craft. Human life is what actually gives value to everything else. And until human life was created, the rest was valueless. And that's why we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, which is the birthday of Adam, according to one opinion. Is the first day that human life existed, and that is the true start of our universe. The rest of the universe, let's say from the scientific perspective, all the way from the Big Bang until humanity came out, this whole universe was worthless. We could have all thrown it in the garbage. It's just a big piece of junk, right? The whole universe is one big piece of junk. Okay, it really is. What else? Explain to me what value does a planet have, right? You look at a couple of rocks on the side of the mountain. What value does a rock have, right? What value does it have? Correct. And but on its own, it has no value. Now, the fact that God created it for humans to interact with it, that's what gives it its value. Its value is based on the fact that a human could take that rock and do something awesome with that rock. That is what makes the rock valuable. You could build the Holy Temple in Jerusalem with that rock. 100%, right? The whole value is based on humanity, and that's why we celebrate the birthday of Adam, the day that Adam was created, and we do not celebrate when the universe was created, because the universe's creation is relatively valueless until humanity came around. All right, so that is what the Gemara is basically saying, etc. Yeah. Rav Eino Shavu Yovel Reish L'Kil Bro. Oh, so you're right. I'm wondering why something wasn't making sense. Like the wording wasn't jiving until one of our Talmudic experts corrected me that I skipped the word. And I'm wondering why this thing doesn't jive. If you saw my face was like, what? What's going on here? Right? How long ago did you start learning Talmud over here? Somebody? Yeah, who did that? Yes. Massive is actually from Mesve. Massive is a challenge. It's a keyword. We're challenging something. Our Gemara just said that we have in Yovel, on the Jubilee year, we have the same blessings, and we have the same blessings, and we have the same shofar blowings on the Jubilee year, on Yom Kippur, as we do on Rosh Hashanah. Now, Rav Eino is going to challenge this assumption, this claim that the Gemara made. We're going to challenge this claim. He says, Rav Eino, Shavu Yovel Reish L'Kil Braches. Are you going to tell me that the Jubilee is the same as Rosh Hashanah for the blowing of the shofar and for the blessings? Are you going to say that there? Why not? Because we just told you that we say, we remind God about the first day of creation on Rosh Hashanah, which is the day of the first day of creation. On the Jubilee year, do we say that? Well, we say it on Rosh Hashanah. We're talking about the Jubilee year on Yom Kippur. We said on Yom Kippur, we repeat the Rosh Hashanah. Again, on Rosh Hashanah, we do say, what about Yom Kippur? No. Yom Kippur is not the beginning of creation. Therefore, even on a Jubilee year, even though you might say the rest of the blessings on a Jubilee year, but why would you say, reminding God of the first day of creation when it was not the first day of creation, right? On Yovel, this seems to contradict. This seems to contradict the notion that the prayer, the blessing on Jubilee year, is the same as that of Rosh Hashanah.
This is very important. These rabbis will determine what you say on Rosh Hashanah. Mayor, you ever went to a Rosh Hashanah service? Yeah, right? Right? There's a lot of things to say there, right? You realize lots of things to do, lots of things to say. Do you realize, Mayor? You might find this interesting. Do you realize that on Rosh Hashanah, listen carefully, every single prayer that you said was argued upon, was discussed by thousands, if not millions of rabbis. You think, oh yeah, somebody just decided to pump this in my book and make me read it. No, that's not what happened, right? There was tremendous discussion and very often arguments on whether or not to put specific prayers in those books. And that's what we're discussing in our Gemara. Our Gemara is discussing, hold on a second, in the Jubilee year, are we going to say we're reminding God of the first day of creation? That wouldn't make sense. The whole reason we say it on Rosh Hashanah because it is the first day of creation. That's why we say it on Rosh Hashanah. But we should not be saying it on the Jubilee year on Yom Kippur because that's not the first day of creation. So if we don't say it, I just debunked your notion, your claim that it's equal, your claim that the same blessings and the same shofar is on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I debunked that because I just showed you a blessing that exists in the Rosh Hashanah prayer that doesn't exist in the Yom Kippur prayer of Jubilee year. Yeah. So the Gemara says, you're right. This particular prayer is not there. And when we told you that the blessings are the same, we mean the blessings are the same. It things of Rosh Hashanah. There might be a little bit of things of Rosh Hashanah that are relevant to Rosh Hashanah and not Yom Kippur. Those things, in fact, the Gemara says, we are going to take out of the Yom Kippur prayer on the Jubilee year. But everything else that's not specifically relevant only to Rosh Hashanah, we can also say Yom Kippur on the Jubilee. Okay, Yom Kippur prayer is also very long, right? And wait till you get to the Jubilee year and Yom Kippur. We're going to have the whole Yom Kippur prayer plus that of Rosh Hashanah. Both of them together. Imagine that. On Yom Kippur, we say the same blessing as Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. Imagine that. Do double. We're going to do Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur prayer simultaneously in the same day. You're never going to get home. You're going to be waiting in the middle of the night. You're going to be like, uh-oh, is this over yet? Rabbi, come on. Yeah. Good. What? You say it's like, Mayor, I just want to, don't get so scared. The Jubilee year only comes out, the Jubilee year only, the Jubilee year only comes out once every 50 years. That's number one. And number two, the Jubilee year currently is not being practiced because we only practice the Jubilee year when majority of the nation of Israel is resident in Israel, right? Until majority of the Jews are living in Israel, we don't reestablish a Jubilee year. And even then, it seems like it's not going to happen to the Messianic era when the Messianic king, he's going to be the one to reestablish the Jubilee year, seemingly. But definitely, we're not practicing the Jubilee year.
Know when the majority of Jewish people is here.
How
many Jews there are.
how do you know? Okay, we could use whatever information. We can go based on our best information. All right, that's what we can do. We can go based on our best information that we have.
Worth nothing.
Huh?
We're just worth nothing.
Who's worth nothing?
Our best information.
Why?
Like,
First of all, we do know a little bit approximately how many Jews there are. And by the way, you should know that recently Israel, for the first time in its history, actually has more Jews than any other world. For the first time, yes. Yes, it does. It did. It did. First of all, Russia definitely does not have more. Russia has a lot less Jews. No, you don't.
we don't know what is Jewish. The mother is Jewish.
Again, people that are known, that have proof that they're Jewish, the Israel right now has more known Jews in Israel than another place.
The number can only go down. The Fuslar's number can only go up.
What does that mean?
Because here for sure it's a max. The number
What's
that?
that?
Here is like the max.
Why is it the max?
Because it can always be less. Maybe they're not Jewish. But it's
Right.
going to be more.
Right.
They don't count this.
I don't know. I don't understand what you're saying.
It means the number that counts Jews in Eretz Israel
Right.
can never be higher than the number they give. It can only be lower.
Right.
Fuslar is the exact opposite.
Are you
The
saying?
number they give can only be higher, way higher. Like,
All right.
higher.
Possible. All right. I hear your argument. It's an interesting argument. In either or, at least officially.
Goes to the mother, it goes to the Jewish community. It depends what depends on Yiddishkeit. Or the Jewish mother, Jewish community. Depends
What does that mean? I don't know
like if you
what
go according to what the Jewish community
Right.
says, how Jews they are,
Yeah.
or if it goes according to the mother, if she beats the child is Jewish. Depends on what opinion you go.
I don't know what you're talking
If you
about.
go according to the Jewish people, go according to the mother. No matter
Right.
if they're a part of the
Saying there might be
community or not.
more unknown Jews than other.
There are definitely a lot of unknown Jews, 100%. By the way, throughout history, there was always Jews that either assimilated by force or even by will, right? You had the people in Spain that they would hide their Jewish identity. I don't know if you know this, but when the Islamic movement started becoming big, okay, many rabbis actually said that you should convert to Islam rather than get killed, because they said it's not idol worship, because they're following one God, and therefore in the Sephardic communities, in the Middle Eastern communities, many people converted to Islam by force, right? And many of them are probably part of Islam today. As a matter of fact, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard they've done DNA tests of many Palestinians, and they found that there's a lot of similar DNA to them and Jews, and it's very possible that a lot of them are Jewish. That's why they're so crazy like us. They're nuts. You wonder why they're so crazy. They're Jewish, man.
It's just here. In Europe, it's over 1,000 years being assimilated.
Huh?
In Europe, it's over.
Can you believe that? Why don't you tell the Palestinians out there? Listen, you guys, some of you are Jewish anyways. Like most of you, maybe some. I don't know if you're fighting the Jews. You are the Jews, maybe. I don't know.
According to
Abrahamic
ChatGPT,
question.
Yes.
one at a time, guys. We're kind of
Okay, start. We have a question from. Let's go.
So,
Right, you have a microphone. Could they hear you? You have a mic. Hey,
What are the traits and things Mashiach will do?
what are the traits and things that Mashiach will do? So that's actually very mysterious. There's a lot of theories throughout Judaism what the Messianic era will be like. There's only a few things that are actually officially recorded as absolute obligations. These things have to be in the Messianic era. There's actually very few. Okay, Maimonides, he wrote a law book, a book of Jewish law, and he writes clearly what are absolute obligations of the King Messiah of Messianic era. Number one is he has to strengthen the Jewish people in their observance of the Torah. That's number one. Number two, he has to bring the Jewish people to Israel, and he has to rebuild the temple. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to rebuild the temple before he brings the Jewish people or after. I don't remember. You could check it up. It might not be clear either. But again, the Messianic era will be led by the rebuilding of the temple, the Jews returning to Israel in the temples in its place, which is okay. So again, it's a bit of a peculiar argument, and I don't know who came up with that, but it's actually a complete twist of the meaning of the Rambam, and the Rebbe never said that. No, people made it up. No, the Rebbe said what? Beit HaMikdash bin Komo is in the place of the Beis HaMikdash, meaning the place of the Beis HaMikdash. Again, he said that there's a concept. He said there's a concept of building it. Right. So, yes, 100%. No, he speaks about the Rebbe. No. So okay, so show me where the Rebbe said that. I don't remember. Anyways, I've heard people say it. I've never seen it inside, and it would be a complete mix up of the true Jewish narrative. Okay, so let me tell you something. Maybe that's why you're doing the way you are. You know, you're having trouble getting your brains straight because you got they put in some messed up ideas. Now you have to get the ideas straight, and once you get that, then your whole soul can be turned over, and Baruch Hashem, you'll strive and thrive, Bezrat Hashem, with the true godliness instead of with twisted ideas, right? And by the way, you should know, I'm going to share something very political here if you want to hear, by the way. Okay. I'm sure you know that there was a few months ago, there was a whole big controversy where people dug tunnels next to 770, and they broke certain places to expand 770 illegally, right? And they got arrested, and it was on the TV, and it happened to be just as Israel was taking down the Hamas tunnels there, right? Now, I want to tell you a little bit of the history behind why those people did what they did, okay? The reason those people did what they did is because the Rebbe, when he spoke about what you said about building the Beis Hamikdash in the Beis Hamikdash Shebebavel, which means the great rabbi's temple of Babylonia, which means the exile temple, right? The Rebbe spoke about that particular sicha called Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel was actually said as preparation to re-renovate the entire 770 and expand it all the way to the next block. Okay, the Rebbe, when he said that sicha, there were published plans. Okay, you can look it up, you can find them. I've seen them. There was published plans exactly how 770 was going to be built all the way to Union Street, and they were going to pretty much double the size of 770. And only after they came out with those plans, the Rebbe said that sicha as saying that we're going to build the Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel by expanding 770. Now, guess what? Never happened. With the whole sicha, and I pointed this out to Meshachistim, right? The people that are all into Rebbe's Mashiach, and they tell me the things like you say, build. Well, guess what? It never happened. The Rebbe spoke about that sicha was all about expanding 770 to Union Street, and it never happened till today. Now, what happened is, by the way, I don't know if it's my fault. I don't want to say this 100%, but it might be my fault because we live here in Tzfas, and there's a massive Meshachist movement over here in Tzfas. A lot of the Messianic Chabad people are here in Tzfas, and you have no idea that I'm here now for 10 years, and over the last 10 years, I must have had this conversation with Meshachistim numerous times, where I yelled at them. I said, "What? You're coming around with Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel? Never happened." I was shoving it in their face all the time, and these guys are like, "What? You're serious?" And then they do the research, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? You're right. It could be my fault. Maybe I stirred up the whole trouble. It could be because I've been saying this all the time that the Rebbe's sicha of Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel, at the end of the day, never happened. Okay, he came out to expand 770. 770 was not expanded. Yes, it does. That's the whole sicha is about expanding 770. The whole sicha is about expanding 770. As I told you, there were actually plans. They were published. You look like you're young enough to be there. You probably remember what I'm talking about. They published it. They've actually asked every single chassid should give $770 towards the plan. My father actually gave it. They even had these little plaques that they put up there. If you gave $770 towards the project, my father gave it. Many other people gave it. And for some reason, they started the project and they built a little bit, but the project somehow got stalled and completely. And then shortly afterwards, the Rebbe had a stroke, and then it never continued. Again, that's also when the Meshachistim came about this big palace. So I told them, "What, you want to build the Rebbe's palace before you build the Rebbe's shul?" I also used that against them. So I'm telling you, you should know. By the way, don't tell too many people. I think that I might have been I don't know if I'm completely at fault, but I think I'm definitely a little bit at fault for those tunnels being built because I kept on shoving it in their face, and they probably at one point are like, "Hey, you know what? We're fighting to build a castle in Kfar Chabad. Let's expand 770." And before you know it, they actually. So what they did was, again, I kind of got lost on this. What happened is that these radical Chabadnikim, if you could call them that, people that are like, "What? The Rebbe said to expand 770. They're not expanding 770. We're going to expand 770. We're going to do it ourselves." And what did they do? They took a bunch of hammers. They took a bunch of sledgehammers, and they started knocking it down, and they started expanding it on their own. And apparently they even did certain things that are dangerous. They don't care. They're just kind of breaking walls, digging tunnels. No, they didn't. That's the whole problem. Apparently, they ended up getting arrested. I said they had to arrest them because these guys were crazy, man. No, these guys were crazy. They were going to build until the whole building falls down. They're knocking everything down. So they had no choice. They had to call the cops. They called the cops on them, and the cops had to arrest them. And it was on TV. It was like a whole thing that they're building tunnels in 770. So again, for those of you who want to know the true story behind that, it's because the Rebbe said we should expand 770. It never ended up getting expanded. And these guys were like, that's it. If the Rebbe said to expand and it didn't expand, we're digging. We even have somebody over here, he wears a Mashiach pin in the shape of a shovel to show his support for this particular movement. Yes. What do you think, Mayor? Does that make sense? The Rebbe said to expand 770. Does that mean we can go
No,
into
that means that the Rebbe wanted to make 770 bigger.
right? So, but if no one was doing it, maybe we should take sledgehammers, break down the walls, and just expand it until the whole building falls down. What do you think?
He would be like, that's ridiculous. What are you guys doing? Get your head together and listen to your rabbis.
I agree. I agree with you. You can't, again, even though the Rebbe said to do it, but there's ways how to do it, and you have to do it properly, and you don't just go breaking walls that you could, God forbid, knock the building down and hurt people.
Like you wouldn't go to Jerusalem and knock the buildings down to rebuild it by yourself without the rabbi's permission.
Correct. You have to have some type of organized.
I can say it too. Oh,
Yeah. What did you want to say, Shimon? Yeah. What?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know if you remember, but
Yeah.
Tafshin Mendeh and Gimel.
I was born in Men Gimel, just so you should know.
Sorry.
So Men Beis I can't remember. Men Gimel, I don't know.
Maybe you know it by stories, but at that time,
Yeah.
the doors, the big doors
Yeah.
that they have upstairs right
Yeah.
now, was not like that. It was a very small door.
So-
you walking.
Right. No. So the only thing during that time when the Rebbe said Beis Rabbeinu Shabbat, which I think was actually 1990. I think 1990, somewhere around there. Now what happened was
1990.
it was somewhere around then when they started building. When's the Sikha Beis Rabbeinu Shabbat? I think it's 1990. Whatever it is, the fact is that what they did build is that they built the bathrooms downstairs. They built a whole floor with bathrooms. They built on top of the lady, not on top. There's like a big porch. There's a big porch outside that the ladies stand on, up like right outside the building. That whole thing was not there. They built the porch and they built that. So basically, from there down, they built. But they were also supposed to build all the way to Union Street. They were supposed to build to Union Street.
That's exactly
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah.
And the question is,
Yeah.
the Rebbe gave that sikha to extend.
Again, the whole thing. It was one big project.
Afternoon,
It was one big project. The part of the project was what they did, right? But that was only part of the project. It was a whole project of revamping the whole entire building all the way to Union Street. It was one big project. They started, as I said earlier, they started it. They did part of it. And then somehow, maybe perhaps because the Rebbe had a stroke, whatever it is that it kind of got
and then
cut.
it was a story with the engineers that
Yeah.
they had some question about the post.
Yeah.
And they asked the Rebbe says, no, there is another way or something like that to do it without putting the post in the middle.
Yeah, there was talk. There was talk, yeah. There was talk about it.
So
All right.
that's the question. Okay.
All right.
Definitely, that's not the reason there. That's absolutely.
Okay,
no.
let's continue.
And
Yeah, we have another question. We didn't get the question and answers yet. We're really supposed to be finishing the Gemara before we go to question and answers. Huh? So let's we don't have a lot. Let's just finish over here and then we're gonna go. Rav Shisha B'Reida Rav Idi Masni. He says as follows. So we basically have the exact same discussion, but we have it in different wordings, which is common, right? He actually, in the second wording, he's actually quoting a Mishnah that says that Yovel is equal to Rosh Hashanah. In the previous one, it is the rabbi saying it himself, which means in the earlier one, it was the Amoraic sage saying it. In the latter one, it is a Tanaic sage saying it. However, it's pretty much the exact same discussion, just quoted in different words, because as I told you in the past, very often in the Talmudic era, they didn't always have the accurate wording from the Tanaic era, and therefore very often there were disputes in exactly how certain particular discussions happened, and that's why the Gemara decided to record both ways of that it was going. All right? Good. Now we're going to stop there for the Talmudic part of the class, and we're going to go to questions that are coming in like crazy. We have David over here says there's just questions kind of flying in all the time. Baruch Hashem. At the moment, by the way, I don't see the questions because our new system is that our producer over here sees the questions and I don't. So he's going to read out the questions, etc. Does anybody in the class have a question? Mayor, you have a question? All right. Remember, now is kind of a question answer session. If you are super into learning the Talmud and you want to just keep to the Talmud, you're welcome to go out into the study hall and continue learning that on your own. If you want to hear the interesting questions and answers that are going to come up, you're welcome to stay here. All right? Or you could ask your own questions, by the way. What's that? What's that? You're going to read the Gemara? You have the sheet.
All right.
So continue. Work on the sheet. 100%. Good. Go for it.
Antonio Pratini asks, what does the Jewish God think of suicide?
What does a Jewish God think of suicide? I've actually spoke about this before, and I want to tell you guys something. Okay? There's no greater sin that a person could do than killing themselves. Why? Because ultimately, when you were born, the first and foremost responsibility you have was to ensure your life, to take care of your life, right? If a person takes their own life, there's no bigger way of slapping God in the face than taking your own life, right? And I'm not being cold, or how should I say it? When you're ignoring somebody, what's it called? I'm not trying to be insensitive to people's difficult challenges in life. Very often, people have hard times. They have big challenges, right? However, they have to realize that there is purpose in those challenges that God has given them. And they have no right to take their own life the same way they have no right to take anybody else's life. And I'm going to actually share with you something, right? Just because you mentioned it. I once had a student of mine, right? Many years ago, so you won't be able to trace him back. But he actually sat down with me and he told me that he wants to kill himself. So I asked him, why do you want to kill yourself? So he says, because of all this pain and suffering that he has, etc., etc., etc. I said, and how do you know it's better on the other side? You never know. What do you mean? You're going to kill yourself because you want to get rid of the pain. Maybe the pain's going to get worse when you get there, right? You know it's on the other end. No, you don't. So therefore, it's a stupid idea. You saying, oh, I'm going to kill myself so I'm going to get rid of the pain. Who says you're going to get rid of the pain? How do you know? Maybe the pain is going to be greater on the other side, right? As a matter of fact, according to Jewish tradition, that is the truth. The truth is that the pain is greater on the other side if you kill yourself, right? Because when a person kills themselves, it's such a horrible sin. It's the worst of all sins, right? There's no greater sin than a person killing themselves. So you basically are meeting God a second after you slapped him in the face. You can imagine go to a massive, strong bully, smack him in the face 5 times, and just stand there right in front of him, right? Not a good idea. I wouldn't try that, right? So again, if God forbid somebody does a sin in their life, okay, they did a sin, whatever. But 2 months later, 3 years later, whatever, 10 years, 100 years later, they die, right? And they meet God. And like, okay, 100 years ago, what could I do? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. But if a person kills themselves, they're literally doing the worst possible sin and then facing God a second later. It's a horrible, horrible idea. If anybody's considering that, you can get a hold of me and I'll give you some more reasons why you shouldn't do it. But yes, definitely it is not an accepted reality. You have to realize that everything God gave you has a purpose, even if it's difficult, and you have to fight through it and succeed and thrive. Okay? And when you do so, you will see eventually at some point, you're going to see that it was worth it for doing so. Zell. All right? We have another question? Go for it. What happened? So we can pass the mic here.
Okay. Let's see.
We have a lot of questions there.
There's a few here. So one from eDreamcast says, how can Israel resist if it becomes a pariah state?
I don't know what that means. What's a pariah state?
It means like
microphone. You need to put on a microphone. They need to hear you too. Yeah. What is? I don't even know what that means. A pariah state.
Pariah state means like scorned by the other nations, or like put in the corner away from the party.
I hear. So first of all, I don't really think it's an issue for Israel to be a pariah state. I think it might make it a little bit more difficult for us, but I don't think it is going to, I don't think it's an existential threat. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I don't think Israel will ever become a pariah state because there's many countries out there that have personal interests in Israel, right? And by the way, the more Israel becomes a pariah state, the stronger Islamic radical jihadism is going to spread around the world, as is. And the more the jihadists attack other people, the more the other people realize what we're fighting. And that's the fact. Israel's not fighting a battle over land. Anybody that thinks that Israel's a land dispute is ignorant, and I would even say deliberately ignorant, because if you said this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I could understand. There was reason to believe so. Okay, today, if you come to Israel, there's 1 million Arabs that live in Israel calling themselves Palestinian who don't want to leave Israel. They were actually asked, do you want to join a Palestinian state? And they're absolutely not. We want to stay in Israel, which means the Palestinians actually prefer Israel over a Palestinian state, which essentially means that the Palestinian people as a people do not have a national will. By the way, the Palestinians as a nation, if they were never really a nation, the Palestinians. They were always a people that lived in lands. Some of them were more connected to Jordan, some of them were more connected to Egypt, some of them were more connected to other areas. It's not a land dispute. This is a jihad, right? And anybody that thinks anything else is ignorant, and I would say deliberately ignorant, because today there's already enough evidence to prove that this is not a land dispute. This is and it's not a national will. There's no national will of a people to create a Palestinian state. They don't want it. This is just an excuse for jihad, and it's a way to convince other people that they're legitimate and not a jihad, because if they came out and said we're a jihad, the whole world would be against them, and then their jihad would fail. Now, they're not as stupid as you think. A lot of people think that these Arabs out there are stupid. They're not stupid. They know that if they come out and say that they're fighting jihad, then they would lose the battle immediately because everybody would be against them. So what do? They say, no, we're not a jihad. We're a national unity, trying to fight for our land. We're trying to resist occupation. And they come up with these things that make you think that they're a legitimate cause so that you should back them, or at least you shouldn't fight against them. Right? The fact is, what's going on in Israel is it can be answered. It's one word. It's jihad. It has nothing to do with anything else. There's no other reason that Israel's being attacked other than the fact that there's radical Islamic terrorists that want to destroy Israel and kill every single person here in Israel. And that is what's going on in Israel. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you think otherwise, then you are living in the sand. Get your head out of the sand and start thinking and look at the evidence, and you'll realize that the entire war here is one jihad, nothing more, nothing less. Zell.
That's why they said from the river
Okay.
to the sea.
So
Again, I'm not going into the details.
That means no Jews gonna
I understand. The river to the sea is essentially a call for genocide and of all of the people in Israel. They use it. It's another way of hiding their true intentions. Although it's become more, how should I say it? People have, what do you say when people are exposed? It's been exposed, right? They used to say it a lot. Now it's been exposed as a call to jihad, etc. By the way, you know the red hands? They put out these red hands, right? It sounds like, oh, they're trying to defend the blood of the Palestinian kids. No. You know what the red hand stands for? The red hands, whereas actually one time they killed an Israeli and they washed the Israelis' hands in blood, and you see the terrorists, there's pictures of the terrorists holding up their hands red in blood from a murdered innocent Israeli, and that's actually the red hands actually symbolizes the mass murder of innocent Israelis, and guess what? You have people who claim to be legitimate, legitimately caring about goodness, and they're putting up these red hands. They don't realize it's actually a symbol of terrorism. Okay, and so again, the terrorists, the Islamic Jihad, is a lot smarter than you think. Okay, and they're able to convince you that they're not a jihad, because if they actually told you they were a jihad, they would lose the battle. They don't want to lose the battle. They want to fight the jihad, and therefore, that's the way they say it. That's the way they present it. Okay, but you must realize that that's in fact, this is a jihad. There's nothing else. Yes, continue.
So another person is asking, do you
What's
have
their
any?
name? Do we have a name? No name.
Do you have any gossip or inside information on what would happen when the Dome of the Rock is destroyed?
So I don't like saying when the Dome of the Rock was destroyed. I don't necessarily advocate us as people to deliberately go and break anything there. I've said this in previous videos that the Jewish people are actually banned. We are prohibited from initiating violence. Okay, if somebody wants to attack us, we have the right and obligation to defend ourselves. We're not allowed to initiate violence, and therefore, it would be against Jewish law to initiate an act that will cause violence, right? As I said, again, no, they don't have to attack. They have, even if they threaten, right, correct. But it has to be a legitimate threat. If there's a legitimate threat, if there's a legitimate threat, not if they say it, but I'm saying, for example, if you see that the very groups that are saying it have actually attacked in the past, well, then obviously it's a legitimate threat, right? We can only fight if it's a legitimate threat. We're not allowed to initiate violence. Therefore, it would be, in my humble opinion, it would be prohibited for Jews to go on the Temple Mount and destroy anything over there. However, as I said in the past, is that these people keep on shooting out missiles. It could be that God will make one of those missiles. Iran will send a missile, and they won't realize it'll land exactly in the Dome of the Rock and blow the whole thing up. But again, that we can't do that. If it happened, again, I know people said, not necessarily. They said that not necessarily did we stop a rocket from falling on the dome. We stopped the rocket from falling in Jerusalem next to the dome. And in Israel, they used it a little bit. We also sometimes do propaganda. They said they tried to knock it down. It's not true. It wasn't aimed directly at the Dome of the Rock. As I said, if somehow it gets knocked down and broken by some other means, then we can deal with that situation. We cannot deliberately do that. Okay, as I said, if Iran sends a missile and it happens to knock down the Dome of the Rock, we can deal with that at that point. But up until then, I don't think that we are allowed. I think we're prohibited from taking initiative to do any of that.
So another question from the same person: Is it the main teaching that only the Mashiach and God can reestablish the nation of Israel?
Not necessarily. No. The Jews actually, the nation of Israel actually amongst themselves have an obligation to do whatever they could to reestablish the nation of Israel. And by the way, even to build a temple. If there was a way, according to Jewish law, to rebuild the temple, let's say, for example, right now the temple is being controlled by the Waqf. The Waqf is controlled by the Jordanian government. Imagine if somebody comes and speaks to the Jordanian government, and the Jordanian government says, you know what? Go ahead, no fight, no war. Let's make peace. Let's let you build the temple. If that were to happen, I believe that the Jewish people are obligated biblically to build the temple. We have an obligation to build the temple. We have an obligation to reestablish the state, not the state of Israel as a democratic government like it is today, but we have an obligation to do whatever we could to reestablish as much as possible the nation of Israel. We'd have that obligation. However, we've seen throughout history that it's impossible. And we believe that at least at this point in time, it doesn't sound really possible at this point, and therefore we believe that that's going to be something done by the Messiah, right? As a matter of fact, people came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and asked the Rebbe to back a movement that was trying to fight for the rebuilding of the temple, and the Rebbe refused. And I don't think the Rebbe refused because he thought that we're waiting for Mashiach. I think the Rebbe refused because he didn't think it was a practically accomplishable goal, right? Which means we don't wait. Jews are not meant to waste their time with projects that can't be successful. We need to work on something that we think could be successful. Okay, so if we think that it's impossible, there's no reason to try. Yeah.
Even if they,
Yeah.
the state of Israel, would build the base of Mikdash,
Yeah.
and even if there would come fire
Yeah.
from the Shemayim, would stand aside and not be part of it.
I would like to see the quote. I've heard, as I said, you've already quoted a lot of things that I never heard of, and I don't know if they're true. And I would highly suggest to you that before you re-quote something, you should check it out. Especially if it's a wild claim. You're like, wow, this is wild. So don't regurgitate. Don't regurgitate garbage. You know what I'm saying? Again, I'm not saying it is garbage. I'm saying you should try not to regurgitate garbage. So if you hear something that's amazing, a massive idea, check it up before you tell it again, right? And this way, and by the way, you are going to look a lot more professional when you come to a thing and somebody's like, and you say something drastic, and everybody's like, what are you talking about? And you're like, yeah, it says it right here in the Sikha, right? You're asking. You're asking. I don't know. I didn't read every book of the Rebbe Maharash or whatever. I don't know. No, I'm saying I don't know, but I'm saying there's a lot of things I don't know. Right?
So there's same person's asking. So I've heard from many Jewish sources that Mashiach is there already. Is that true?
So I know a lot of people say it. It's just it's talk. Now we do believe as Jews that the messianic king is always alive. Is a human being that's always alive. Even right now, he's alive. The question is if we know who he is, and the question is, has he begun the mission of the messianic era or not? This is able. We can dispute this. It's not 100% clear. However, it's 100% clear that. Definitely, we haven't completed the Messianic era's missions. There's certain very clear goals that have to be accomplished in the Messianic era, and those goals were definitely not yet accomplished. Huh? By the way, I want to tell you something. You know, I was a little bit harsh on you, but I really would like to see these sources. Because you know what? I want to tell you, both of the things that you mentioned that I thought were not necessarily true, both of them, you're not the first person I heard it from. I've heard it from a lot of people. And you know what? I also told the other people to bring me a source, and they haven't yet bring me a source. Right? Now, by the way, if you bring me a source and I see it's true, then maybe I'm going to start talking about it. Right? Maybe I'll share it too. If I see that it's a legitimate claim, I still would start saying it. Why not? It's there. Yeah, good.
See the source is very, very important.
Yeah. Where are we?
Yeah.
Correct. Even the Rebbe, even the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he printed his books and his talks, he was very particular to put sources in there to show that he's not just talking out of himself. He's actually bringing sources, and this was important to the Rebbe. And I think that the lesson from that is that it's important to show your own backing, not to just say something and that's that. To show where you're coming from. And by the way, to show I think the Rebbe wanted people to be clear that the Rebbe was not coming and inventing his own Torah. He was actually explaining and teaching the Torah. And therefore, he wanted to bring the sources to show that he's interpreting the Torah and not that he's saying things out of his belly. Yeah, we have only a few more minutes, but let's get to the questions that we still have here, and then we're going to move on. Right? We have a few more minutes left. If anybody still has questions that they didn't ask, that they want to ask, you better do it now because we're going to shut this. We're going to just shut the stream very shortly. Next level. Did you put anything on there?
Next level.
You put it because I couldn't see it today because he I don't know. It's a new new
We
thing.
can switch it up again later.
Okay. You have more questions, our moderator? Is there anything else going on there? No, maybe so.
Next level.
No? All right. So we'll give you 10 more seconds. Anybody that wants to ask a last question, anybody in the class wants to ask a question, you're welcome. And then we're going to go on to the next level.
Is it possible you're the Mashiach?
Is it possible that I'm the Mashiach? I once thought about that. And by the way, this possibility was actually, whatever, I'm like in my head, like maybe yes, maybe no. Who knows? Right? And for many years I struggled with this question. Yeah. And then it was about 13 years ago that I discovered that I'm from the Levite tribe. And Mashiach is meant to be from the Judean tribe, not from the Levite tribe. So I'm like, okay, good. No, now I know that I don't have to worry. No, it was a worry. But it's a worry, you know. If you're Mashiach, you got there's a lot of responsibilities you got. No, I wasn't. You see, some people they do, Mashiach because I'm so big. I was the exact opposite. I mean, maybe I'm Mashiach after maybe all the problems in the world is my fault.
Maybe what if you're not actually Levi? What if it's
So I'll tell you what, I've thought about that as well. I thought about that as well. The fact that my family tree was hidden from us for about 70 years before I found out that I was a Levi, and then it was discovered, I kind of feel like if we weren't a Levi, God would have made sure that it stayed undiscovered. Meaning if my previous family called themselves a Levi, right, and they were not a Levi, and then that information got lost, well, God would have made sure that information stayed lost. The very fact that somehow 70 years later, after my family didn't know, all of a sudden we found documents that proved we're from the Levite tribe, that very fact to me was like, if it wasn't true, God wouldn't allow us to find those documents.
We're staying on God because of your feelings.
No, by the way, it's not my feelings. The rabbis actually looked at the documents and they confirmed that these documents are legitimate. As a matter of fact, I tell people that I'm more a Levi than most Levites today. Most Levites today, they just decided that they're a Levi. Why? Because their father told them they're a Levi. Shkoyach, maybe your father told you wrong. I don't know. I'm actually a Levi because rabbis actually sat down, looked at documents, and made an official rabbinic ruling that I'm a Levi. So how many Levites could say that there's an official rabbinic ruling that rabbis got together and they said, yes, you're a Levi? Very few Levites were personally confirmed as Levites, except me. I can make money. How are you going to make money? You American, everything's money. You can make. How are you going to make money out of being a Levite? Huh? Yeah, I'm a Huda Levi. So I should get hired as the designated Levi, right? Because I'm a find me a show like that. I'll be happy. Depends how much they paid me, and I'll tell you the truth. I don't consider concepts until they're out. When the offer's on the table, I'll deal with it. Yeah. What do you say? He says that there's going to be a show that's going to. I just explained how I'm one of the few people that was actually officially confirmed a Levi by Psak Din of Rabbonim, right? Because again, we didn't know we were Levim for about 70 years, and then we found the Ksuba, we found proof, and we brought it to Rabbonim, and the Imamish said that based on this, you're a Levi, and I said all the other Levim, they don't have rabbinic confirmation, right? So he said that some shul is going to hire me to be the designated Levi.
I didn't say that.
You think a shul? Is there a shul? No, but what happened when you have the ruined chazaka and it's reestablished? It's even stronger, right? Shtar shabala irur. Yeah, it's a concept. Shtar shabala irur is stronger. What are you going like this? I'm bringing you a Talmudic. I'm bringing you a Talmudic quote, and you're trying to throw out a Talmudic quote with your hands like this. Your hands. Talmudic quote versus. Huh? No, on the contrary. If there's only a reus in the chaskasa, you're right. But the second that it's confirmed not, then it's shtar shebalarira. No, if there's a problem in the chazaka, and then the.
You're talking about a shtar like again. We're talking about something else. We're not here talking about the story of lineage.
No, first of all.
I don't know if we talked about shtar shebalarira about this.
First of all, there was never a girui in the chazaka. It was just that we didn't know. We didn't know that existed. Right, but so here's even better because there was never an irur on the fact that we were Levian. We just didn't know. There's no Megal Gilui Milsa.
Surprisingly, you didn't know. Rabbi, I might be
my grandfather, my father's father, he came to America when he was 7. He grew up in public school, and he was totally secular his entire life. He probably didn't know what it was, right? And then we actually found his ksuba, which, by the way, Rabbi Leshus actually recognized the signature of the rabbi. Apparently, it was in a place in the Bronx where there was a rabbi, a very famous rabbi there, a very serious rabbi, and he recognized the signature of this rabbi in the Bronx. And on the ksuba, it says that he was a Levi. And by the way, afterwards, we asked other families, like some of the other family members, and they knew about it. So we also knew from family also. We have both. But we did, again, no one told us until we found the documents. Once we found the documents, we went back to some of the older family members and like, yeah, this is obvious. We're like, yeah, not obvious to us. No one told us. And by the way, we're the only family that's religious. Like all the other families that knew they were Levites were not religious. Only the one that's religious. I don't have any extended family outside of my immediate family that's like. No, my parents are. I'm also about tshuva. I did a lot of wrong things and I did tshuva for them. You want to know my Avedas? What? I hope so. I don't know. Maybe. I tried. All right, we're going to close. We have one question and then we're going to close. That's it. One more question. and we'll close it.
So
That's
we
it.
have another question. It's interesting. And then Talmudic Tom showed up.
Again, we have to cut it. It's too late. It's late. So
Okay.
that's it. One last question.
So
and we're done.
one option is what about all the stuff surrounding Rav Shlomo Yehuda maybe being Mashiach?
Who's Rabbi Shlomo Yehuda?
I don't know. I've never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. So, and then
I don't know who that
Talmudic
is.
Tom asks, what does the end of the Gemara page, or why does the end of the Gemara page start with the next word? I've heard many different answers.
That's a good question. The simplest answer is it's not just the Gemara pages, are a lot of other pages that do it. And part of the reason is so that you should not accidentally turn two pages. So what they used to do, what they used to do is they used to read the last word and then they would read the first word on the next page, and they would look to make sure that that first word is actually on the next page so they didn't jump two pages. Right?
What's the Kabbalistic reason?
So that's what they did.
Why not just numbers?
Huh? What?
Why not just numbers?
What numbers?
Why not
The
just
point is that they wanted to read it through one long track, so that's the way they did it. Some people want to say that they didn't want to waste a single second learning Gemara, so while they were already reading the first page, meaning until they finished the previous page, they couldn't yet turn the page, right? So they needed to be on this page, right? Once they finished reading the last word, they could read that word, and as they're reading that word, they're already turning the next page. So they didn't waste 1 second.
You also do that if the word wasn't turned on the page. You just say the last word on the page.
You could say the last part of the page again, but then you're saying a word twice. Here, you're having the first word of the next page over here.
So you're legitimizing it.
No, you read the last word of the page, then you read the first word of the next page. As you're reading the first word of the next page, you're turning it.
But if the only reason the first word of the next page is added is so that you can call it learning Torah.
No, so that you're not stopping. There's no stop. It's continuous.
I'm saying you could do that without it being there. You could just say.
But you don't know what the next word is. How are you going to know what the first word on the next
The
page?
next word on the page is the last word on this page. No, it's not the other way around.
What? No, you
The
see.
first word on the next page is the last word on the first page.
No. You see how it says the last word and then it has another word like down here? Okay, so you read the last word, and then as you're reading the word here, you're turning the page, and then you didn't waste the time on you had no stop.
The question is the word the last word on the first page, the first word on the next page.
I don't know. Good question. All right. Anything else? I think we're going to close down. Thanks for joining us. Join us again tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem. We love you all. Yes, please share, etc. Bye-bye. Don't run, but go. There's two alarms.